Right. Hello. Welcome. Yep, we're all good. We're all live. We're all happening on Zoom. Um, can everybody check that their privacy settings are the way they want them to be? So whether that's, you're fully visible or you're just texting or um, your name is not going to appear because this is, I'm recording this. It's going to be up on YouTube. So yeah, just be sure, you are the way you want to be. So yeah, another chance, another Zoom group, another chance to talk about this further emergence business. What is it? What is going on? Why are you here? Why would you be in this group talking to me? So chances are there's a lot of strange stuff going on in your life that you are having trouble making sense of. And I don't have all the answers, but I have a lot of experience in this particular thing. And I've called it further emergence because, yeah, that's kind of what's happening. It's an inner growth spurt. You're growing on the inside. Just like your body used to grow on the outside and then stopped when you became an adult. Now, then it sort of switched over into replication. Now all the growth spurts are going on the inside. I was talking to somebody recently, and they were saying that they were talking to their teacher, not their teacher, their child's teacher, and they were talking about that their child went through a growth spurt, and the teacher was looking at them like, "No, that doesn't happen. That stops when when they're babies," which is crazy. Like anyone who's had a child would know that it continues right through adolescence, right up into early adulthood. Really, you can just see it. And if you've got any, if you've had kids, you know what I'm talking about. But if you've got any, relations, nieces, nephews, or whatever, you'll see it in them. You meet them one week, and then next week or next 2 weeks later, they're like 2 inches taller. So that's what's going on the inside. Except, I mean, if there's that kind of ignorance, yeah, let's call it ignorance. If there's that kind of ignorance about growth spurts in physical growth spurts, there's even less understanding of inner growth spurts, which is what happens. Um, so it's understandable that it's disorienting because we've got a lot of information. I mean, there's this kind of cliche thing of like, oh, we're swimming in information, but there's no wisdom. Don't know if that's true, but there is a lot of information. And it's easy to kind of get off track with the whole thing and like, what's it all about? Have I got this thing? Have I got am I depressed? Why am I depressed? Or I'm I'm so disoriented, or there's got this physical stuff going on in my body, and there's so many rabbit holes or blind alleys that you could go down about further emergence that are not really going to help in my experience anyway if this is what you're going on, if this is what's going on for you. And like I always keep referencing back to, you have to check, if you've got any doubts in your mind, you got to check. Like if you think, God, maybe I'm just clinically depressed. Maybe that's what's going on. I'm not laughing about being clinically depressed, but I'm laughing because it's, we get to those places where we kind of collapse a little bit in the inside, and we're like, we want to just go, oh, maybe it's just this thing. um which is tied in with the cosmic joke generally, which I think when we collapse a little bit, when we drop when our mind just goes, oh, I don't know what's going on. those kind of things. So maybe we go, God, maybe I am just clinically depressed. Maybe it's not a growth spurt. Maybe, that John Dalton guy's completely wrong. Yeah. If you got any doubts about it, like, you got to get them checked. You have to get them checked. Not because um, you might be clinically depressed or not. That doesn't, it's beside the point. For me, like, the point of getting these things checked is to silence those voices, because going through further emergence is hard enough. And if you've got a persistent voice in your head that like I do it with hospitals. That's hilarious. Meaning, like, I'm probably not a hypochondriac, but I sort of feel like I am sometimes, because anytime I get any unusual, I'm number one, because I meditate quite a bit. I'm hyper aware of my body, right? So if I get any like funny little sensation or funny little unusual pain or ache, first place my mind will be, oh, that's it. It's two things it likes to fixate on. I'm having a heart attack, or it's cancer, right? So if I've got a pain in my knee, it's like, oh, that's it, knee cancer. Or any kind of pain. Well, because my father died when I was, he died from a heart attack. So and he died when I was young, like I was 9, so 9 or 11. Yeah, I can never. I always get a bit confused about that. Um, anyway, he so the symptoms, heart problem symptoms, were I'm probably more keenly aware of, because it's kind of a thing in my family. So, any kind of pain here, or any kind of funny pain in my left arm, I'm like, oh, that's it, I'm going to have a heart attack. So, for me, what I do with those two things is, like, I go, oh, okay, well, I might be going to have a heart attack, or that might be cancer. And like, from experience with treating people, like, cancer is something that comes and goes, meaning we have like precancerous cells appearing and disappearing all the time. So I can go, yeah, well, that might be cancer. That strange pain I've got, that might be cancer. And if it's like, oh my God, if my mind is like, oh, what am I going to do about that? What am I going to do? Oh, it's terrible. And I'm planning my funeral. I'm saying my goodbyes in my head. It's all like so dramatic. And if it persists, if it keeps going for a bit too long, and how long is too long is a very relative thing. But if it something just fell there. If it gets to the point where it's like, no, this is too much, then I'll go, right, well, will we go to the hospital about that? Right. So that's my way of putting the brakes on, because I've had quite a bit of experience of being in hospital as a child. I had my appendix out, had my tonsils out. I mean, it was in hospital where I was, where I had quite a pretty significant trauma when I was 3. And I had my tonsils, appendix. I damaged my wrist quite badly when I was 13. And that was pretty bad. I was in intensive care. I think that was the last time I was in hospital as a patient. But then in my later life, I talked about my brother Derek, who was ill in the last Zoom group. So spent a lot of time going to them. My mother just died a little while ago, not a little while ago, a year and a half ago. But yeah, I was in and out to hospital seeing her as well. Okay, camera went there for a second. I was in and out going to hospital seeing her as well. So and I've been in to see people. So every time I go into a hospital, I'm like, I get really anxious. They're just, it's full of people who are very ill, who are having treatments that I find quite questionable. Like, there's a lot of pharmaceutical treatments, and there's just places I'm not judging the people, or anybody in the hospitals. But just for me, it's like, this is a place I do not want to be in, under care. So when my little mind goes, oh, that's it, I'm having a heart attack, or oh, that's a cancer, then I'm like, I let it go for a little bit, and then I go, okay, does that mean we're going to go to the hospital? And then it's like, hang on, hang on a second. I'm like, well, you're saying I've got cancer, and or going to have a heart attack, or maybe I should go and get it checked. And it's like, well, maybe it wasn't that bad. I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't want to go and get it checked. I'm like, okay, well, which is it? Like, am I going to have a heart attack, or is it cancer, or not? And I'm like, it's probably not. And I'm like, okay. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, fine. So, and then the voice is silenced, and that's kind of the point. And that's just for me and how I kind of navigate that. And it's not like I'm getting into a fight with my mind. I know my mind is just trying to protect me and look after me. That's fine. But yeah, I can't. I don't want to let it go on for too long. I don't want to let it go into a loop. Looping in the mind is not good. If you start off thinking one thing, like say with me and my cancer, heart, heart attack, cancer. I kind of joke about that. Um, I'll sort of, if I'm explaining it to someone, I'll go, oh, yes, I had a heart attack, cancer. Anyway, I'll start off going, oh, what's that pain? Oh, what's that mean? It's this thing, cancer. And then, oh, what am I going to do? And it'd be terrible if I died, and funeral, blah, blah, blah. What's that pain? And I'm back to the beginning again, and it starts to loop. Once I feel like looping thoughts are not good, it's good to break them up, if possible, if you can, in any way at all. So for me, how I stop the looping thought is like, okay, we're going to go to hospital? No. Okay, well, then that's the end of that then. Now, I'm not advocating that you do that, and like what I am encouraging you to do is find a way to to silence those voices. Because for as long as you're kind of going, well, maybe I'm depressed, or maybe I've got fibromyalgia, or maybe I've got migraines, or maybe there's something really wrong. If, like for me, it's enough to kind of go, well, are we going to go to the hospital? But, that's just me. I know that it's different for everybody. But you have to find a way to get to that place yourself so that you can address that voice and kind of go, okay, so will we go to the doctor? Will we go to the psychiatrist? Will we go to the psychologist? Will we go and see a therapist? Will we go whatever? And if you're getting yes, we should definitely do that. Yes, we should go to the doctor, whatever. Then you got to go to the doctor, or you got to go to the emergency room. You got to do whatever you've got to go to the figure of authority that your mind is latched onto. Because, say with doctors, for example, we think like the general kind of consensus is, we're very sophisticated. We've left the jungle a long time ago, and we no longer live in tribes, and we're all very sophisticated and civilized. And in one way that is true, but in another way we're not as civilized as we would like to think we are, and certainly when it comes to the doctors. And I'm pretty sure this is for younger generations as well, but I certainly know for my generation and probably 20 years younger than me, the doctor was kind of held up as the authority on your body. Not you. You're not the authority on your body. Somebody else is, and they're called the doctor. And they have the same kind of power that witch doctors used to have in I don't know why the camera keeps going on and off. They have the same kind of power as that witch doctors used to have in the tribe. And there are studies on, and they're sort of frightening in that the studies are on how many people who have a terminal diagnosis die on the day that they were told they would die on. Meaning, they go to the doctor. The doctor says, "Okay, Mr. Jones, you've got cancer. I'm terribly sorry. It's terminal. You've got 6 months." The number of people that died bang on the day of 6 months, it's really high. It's like 90%. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of how powerful the doctors are. So for me, I'm very careful about what I will let a doctor tell me about myself, um, because for me, like things in my observation of my body, things come and go. They pass through. Some things will look, have a sort of flavor to them. I'll get, like say like I do yoga, and yoga is a very it's a very healing kind of thing to do, and it very slowly releases trauma. I can say that like with some authority in that I've worked with, helping people release trauma for years. So I kind of know what it's like. And what yoga does is it does it, but it does it in a slow way. So, I can transit certain aches and pains that, like say, I might have a knee pain that would come, and it might be really sore. Like I might for a couple of days have trouble walking up the stairs, and if I didn't know what was happening, I'd be like, well, this is serious. I've damaged my knee. I know I haven't damaged my knee. I know it's just because I haven't done anything different. It's not like I've suddenly, tried to do some crazy ass yoga move that I never did before. It's just that I have it's like peeling the layers off an onion. It's got down to the point of something releasing in my knee, and while it's releasing, it gets a bit vulnerable, and then it comes back. So um, things do kind of transit through. So if you have a concern and you are like, oh, maybe I've got this fibromyalgia, or I've got, maybe something really serious is going on. Maybe I'm dying here. And you go to the doctor who has all the power of, as I say, the witch doctor. And the doctor he says to you, we've checked everything and we can't find anything wrong with you. Well, then those voices will stop. The voice in your head will stop going on about, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And I've worked with people gone through further emergence, and they've had to go to the emergency room. I never actually thought about that before, but isn't it cute that it's the emergency room, like further emergence? Okay, maybe that's just me enjoying that little thing. But anyway, they've gone to the emergency room, and had a pretty harrowing kind of experience, because emergency rooms are stressful places, particularly if you feel like something is bad enough that you have to go there. You're already stressed, and then you're going into an environment that's just hot and cold running, stress and anxiety everywhere. So they'll have had 28 to 24 to 48 very stressful hours, at the end of which they'll be told, we couldn't find anything wrong with you. And that's happened a few times with people. And it after it, they're different. They've changed. Sometimes like profoundly, and other times they've changed in that the voices are quieted now. Those voices in their head are quieted, and they're no longer have those questions. And the process of further emergence goes a little bit easier, because they're not divided between maybe something serious and maybe it is further emergence. Because most people, here's the camera gone again. Most people who are going through further emergence, they have in their heart, they know it. I mean, further emergence is just the words I've put on it. Because, well, we need words, we need a name for things. But most people know, somewhere deeply they know what's happening, that they know they're going through a growth spurt. They know that there's a growth in consciousness happening. But depending on their configuration and their story and what's going on for them, they part of it might be that they have to deal with their mind and their mind's um, perception of things. Now just let me check if there's any. And like it's, you see that people talking about their mind a lot in particularly meditation circles, and Mo, I mean, there's the general idea is that your mind is bad, it's causing all your troubles, and it's either called your mind or your ego. And when you get into some kind of self awareness kind of um, exploration, maybe you go into a spiritual exploration, it's everywhere. This kind of pervasive feeling of, yeah, your mind is the cause of all your problems, all the misery that you go through, the suffering that you go through. Yeah, it's all your mind's fault. Bad mind. And that's, everywhere that I can see. The only one I've come across that's not like that is Headspace, that meditation app. They not so much having a hard time with your mind, but most places, and certainly, my spiritual teacher, Barry Long, God, he was fierce. He was fierce on the mind, and he used to call it the self. And like the way he would talk about the self, it was like venom dripping out of it. So for me, I don't like that doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel right at all because for lots of reasons. But mainly it's just not loving, and it's divisive. You divide yourself on the inside, and yes, it's true. When you get down into it, you're not your mind for sure. Because if you're observing your mind, which happens naturally enough in meditation, or certainly the meditations I do, if you're observing your mind, then you couldn't be your mind. If you're observing your thoughts, then you're not your thoughts. But I think that's too simplistic, because it's instant by instant. Like Eckhart Tolle has got his book, The Power of Now, and he's actually big into being down on the mind and similar. But then he was quite influenced by Barry Long anyway. So anyway, that's a whole other story. But his book about the power of now is very useful because, like, now it's a very difficult thing to approach. Like I've meditated on now for many years, and it's down to about 10 minutes, meaning I can get my head around. Oh, actually, that's not true. Probably about 2 minutes. I can get my head around a sort of a 2 minute kind of thing, but to really come into the moment, the instant. I've been talking about the instant lately, and so I find that easier to access, and it's useful for meditation because if you sit down to meditate, and your intention is to not think, and you start off and you turn off the pictures and you turn off the sound, you're not thinking, and then the next time you become conscious is that you're in the middle of a big thought, and you go, oh, that's right, I'm meditating, and then you stop, right? So in the magical instant of realizing, oh, I'm meditating, or my intention is to meditate, so I'm going to turn off the sound, turn off the pictures. In that magical instant, you suddenly go from being in your thoughts to being observing your thoughts. I don't know what is going on with the camera. Yeah, you go from being covered by your thought to being observing it. And like you could say like that I'm observing my thought, so I couldn't be my thought. But that is true. But another way of looking at it is I'm observing my thought, so I'm not that thought anymore. That's another way of looking at it. And to kind of go, oh, that's just my mind. It's just my mind thinking, and it's just naughty mind being naughty again. Monkey mind. You see people talking about that. I mean, that's kind of derogatory, isn't it? Because you're talking about yourself. You're talking about a part of yourself. Like for me, it's easy to be compassionate with my mind because I think of things more in terms of consciousness and unconsciousness. And it seems to me that the process of life is uh, unconsciousness or unconsciousness being informed by consciousness. And consciousness and love are kind of the same thing in my observation. Um, so if I start to, like, my mind is probably the least conscious part of me. Um, you could say that again, John. What I mean by that is I feel a lot of compassion for my mind because it's the front bit of me. It's the bit that has to interface with the world. It's got to deal with the tax man and the grocery store person and the electrician and the neighbor and everybody. I have to interact with all those people, and I have to. It has to explain what's going on. But what's driving me is not the front part of me. It's not my mind. It's the really deep parts of me that are behind everything that my mind can get glimpses of sometimes, but it doesn't really know. And like my life will move in certain directions, or I'll be moved to do things like I'll have an intuitive sense of, oh, I should go and do that, or I have an intuitive sense that this is happening, or that person, this is what's going on for that person, and I'll take action based on that. And my mind is like trotting behind, going, "What the fuck are we doing here? What are we? Why are we going here? Why are we talking to this person? What's happening?" And it doesn't know, but it has to interact. It has to try and sound like it knows what's going on, which it doesn't really. Um, like say all this stuff that I'm doing now, all this further emergence stuff, like 6 months ago, I had no intention of doing any of this. It just wasn't on the radar at all. But through meditation, because I mean, I've been meditating, I meditate all the time. Not all the time, but you know what I mean. I meditate throughout the day, and I've been doing that for years. So in meditation, like how like all this started was I was in the middle of meditation and it just popped into my head, oh, I should do this on Instagram Live. I was like, what? My mind was going, what? Why would I do that? And it was, but intuition is a powerful thing, particularly if you listen to it. And it was like, well, yeah, it would be good to do that. Do that. I was like, what? Oh, okay. And like my mind that I have a lot of compassion for, and possibly because I have compassion for it, it doesn't fight too much, and it doesn't torment me about things like that. It's kind of because we've been through it a few enough times that something will come up in my intuition to do, and it will go, really, okay, and I'll do it, and it works out okay. So yeah, it popped into my mind to do to do the meditations live on Instagram, which was like wacky. It was like, what, you just want to sit there in front of a camera meditating for 15 minutes? That's insane. But again, because it was coming up in my intuition, it was like, yeah, you should do that. So I did that, and then the next thing was like, uh, you know, people started to get in touch with me during the lockdown to work with them online, which again I had no plan on. I mean, the whole lockdown situation, that was new and different, and then people getting in touch and like, how do they even know I can do that? Because it's not something I advertised. It's not something I even talk about. I mean, craniosacral is wacky enough. And then to kind of go, yeah, I can work with people one to one at a distance remotely. Yeah, it's pretty powerful. It's as powerful as seeing them in person. Yeah, something to do with quantum physics, quantum entanglement. Um, I don't really, I'm not too bothered as to how it works. I'm just more concerned with if it works. And yes, people are improving. If they've got health related symptoms, they're getting better. If they've got, just feelings of well being, happiness, and knowing what the hell is going on for them, that improves as well. So yeah, it all works. But I wouldn't have advertised that because I used to joke with my students, my craniosacral students, about it and go, "Oh yeah, distance healing. That's how would you? Because how would you advertise that at a alternative health fair, which used to be popular, possibly still is. One of these kind of trade shows for alternative medicine." Where people are giving shiatsu massages and crystals and those kind of things, and they were quite popular, and that maybe they still are. I just haven't done them in, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I did I ever do one? I went to one or two. Anyway, I used to joke going, "Oh yeah, well, the distance healing people would just have an empty booth," you know, because if they're there, it's like. So I used to joke about it, but it's like, again, intuitively, it's like, when I how did I start? I think one of my students in Australia asked me if I would work with them in that way, and I was like, yeah, sure, and I did, and it was grand, and it was exactly the same, if in terms of being effective. So again, when people are getting in touch with me and my intuition was going, "What are you doing?" Or no, my intuition was going, "Yeah, you should start working more like that with people." And my mind was like, "Really? How is that? How does that fit with cranial?" And then I'm fast forwarding here, but it's like, no, you finished seeing people in person. Your practice is closed, but you're not going to reopen it. I kind of thought I was going to reopen it, but no, no, and so on. The intuition, my mind. So I feel for my mind. I have compassion for my mind because it's trotting along behind me, trying to, it's like the press secretary for me. So uh, it feels really unkind and harsh, and just an unkind way to look at it. To go, and it's a sort of very subtle way of beating myself up if I did it, which I don't, of going, "Oh yeah, it's just my mind, it's just my ego this and ego that," and it's like it's all me, it's all part of the mysterious thing inside me that I don't really know that much about, even though I have pretty, I wouldn't say good self knowledge, but I've spent a lot of time reflecting on myself and how I kind of work on the inside. But even with all that, I still feel like I only know a very small percentage of the mystery that is me and comes through me. So if I like when I see myself doing really stupid things or thinking really stupid things or thinking unkind things or cruel things or habitual things or things from my past or things that get labeled, with that bad mind kind of thing, or bad ego, that's just my ego, or that's just the self, or whatever way, you can tell like there's a harshness comes into the tone, and it's like, why split yourself like that? Why get in a fight with yourself like that? Like, for me, it's like, love every bit of me. I love every bit of me, and because I do, it gives me the space to, and the negotiation, the channel for negotiation. Because if you had a friend who was continually going, "Well, you're an idiot and you're the cause of all my trouble. Every shit thing that happens in my life is because of you." Um, like you'd start to resent that person. You'd like, "God, I can't stand being around that person. They just put me down all the time." And that's what it feels like when I hear people talking about their mind in that kind of derogatory way. It's like it's not going to change because of that. You're not, you're sort of taking this moral high ground with yourself. Whereas I'm kind of like, yeah, the front part of me is the least conscious part of me. And because of that, I have the most compassion for it because it's operating with the least amount of awareness. So, and it's doing its best. So I love it. I love it. It's trying and it's willing to listen to me. And yeah, sometimes it goes off the reservation, and I'll, do things that I probably not that good for me or helpful for me, or I'll think things that are not helpful for me or kind. But it will. It's a little bit. Sometimes it can be like a tantrum. I'll have a bit of a tantrum. I get really upset about something, and like it eventually will come back to this part of me, a deeper part of me, and kind of go, oh, I don't know what's going on. I thought I had all the answers, but I don't know have anything. I don't know about anything. And how can I not love that? Let me just have a quick check on questions. No, no questions. I'm obviously being. I'm obviously hitting the mark. That there are no questions. So yeah, I would discourage you from getting into a fight with your mind. I tried it. It's not like I just went straight to this way of looking at it. I particularly when I was very involved in with Barry Long, I tried to really, live the teaching as it was described, and yeah, beat the shit out of myself internally about my mind, about my ego, about sex, about all the stuff that Barry talked about. But yeah, eventually I came to that it wasn't kind. It wasn't kind. It wasn't, and more than it wasn't kind, which sounds like slightly judgmental, it just didn't feel natural to me. Like when I really looked into it, it was like everything that's said about it is true, but it's said from a very compassionless place. And that just doesn't sit right with me. So, and since I've been like that, it's been easier. And it's an ongoing negotiation I have with myself and with my mind. So now, like, and I say this every day when I do the live meditations, um, even though I spend, a lot of the time in the meditation, the actual meditation, bringing my mind back to not thinking, my mind is still up for it. It's still like, yay, meditation, yeah, let's do it. Whereas there was a time when my mind was like, oh my God, this is so boring. Meditation sucks. It is so boring. Um, Whereas now it's okay with it. And I think that's because um, of that relationship that I was talking about, where I'm not out to get my mind, and I'm not trying to get rid of my mind. And I'm not trying to dominate it, because my mind also knows that it disappears every night anyway. Like I go through little death, or what death is possibly like every night. Like, and I'm always surprised that people don't think about this more. Like I've thought about this a lot. Like it's like, particularly with people who are afraid of dying. It's like, but you do that every night. That's what it feels like to me, anyway. Like because fear of death. I mean, there is a biological fear of death. It's in your cells. You don't. It's just kind of a self-protection mechanism. You don't want all the cells to fall apart again and go back into being a tree and a bird and someone's fingernail or whatever. So that I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just the philosophical fear of death, or the existential fear of death, where it's like, oh, what if there's no heaven? What if there's no afterlife? What if there's no reincarnation? What if it's just the end? Like particularly if you get talking to an atheist and like, nah, that's it. When I die, I'm just it. It's just gone. It's kind of chilly. It makes you feel kind of cold on the inside, and like part of me is like, yeah, but that happens every night. Every night after I finish dreaming and I drop out of dreaming into deep dreamless sleep, there's no me. There's no, all the ways that I know myself, that, that's not there anymore. I've got no body, no country, no house, but more importantly, I've got no me. Like me that in the way that I know myself, is gone. It's just gone. And that doesn't bother me. Like if you went to sleep, um, and you thought, well, this is it now. You may not wake up. This might be the last time. This might be it. You're never gonna wake up again. Everyone would be like hanging on to the bed sheets. They wouldn't go to sleep. They'd be drinking coffee. They'd be crying. They'd be like, "Oh, this is so sad." That's all because it's a mental thing. Your like mind is thinking about it. Whereas because I go to sleep, secure in the knowledge that I'm going to wake up in the morning, then I don't mind. It's like, yeah, I just have a little break from existing. I'm just gonna go, yeah, I'm gonna, okay, so let's say I sleep for 8 hours. I'm gonna close my eyes and maybe I'm gonna think a bit for 20 minutes to half an hour. Then I'm gonna, get really crazy with my thinking and dream for another 2 hours or hour and a half. Then I'm gonna, have a little break from existing for about 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. And then I'm gonna, as I'm resurfacing on the other end, gonna do a bit of dreaming, crazy ass dreaming again. And then, a bit of thinking as I wake up and then back to existing again. But it's like, see, my mind kind of knows that. It's like, yeah, the deeper bit doesn't stop existing. In fact, I probably go into it more. But my mind, my frontal part, yeah, that just seems to, that goes. It's just gone. So my mind is a little bit humbled by that and a little bit afraid of it as well. But it also kind of is settled a little bit by it because it's like, well, yeah, I disappear every night and thankfully I reappear. But the deeper part of me, the silent bit, the bit that only talks in intuitive hunches and nudges, yeah, I don't think that disappears. I have a feeling that's where I go to. I just can't remember it. It often feels a little bit like those restaurant doors for the kitchen, where it's like all the waiters go in one door and come out the other door. They never mix them up, or there'll be a collision. Sleep often feels to me like when I drop out of dreams, I go through one door, and then when I come back from wherever it is, that great kitchen in the sky. No, I don't think it's in the sky. I don't think but that deep place. When I go through the indoor and do whatever I do there, when I come out again, as I come out, I forget. It's almost like it cleans it off me, or I can't bring it with me. And as I come out of the kitchen, it's back into dreaming and then whatever. But somewhere I have a feeling that it goes on. I just exist in a different way, or I exist in the deeper part of me. But again, that's just a feeling. But my mind kind of has that feeling of like, yeah, the deeper part keeps going in the deep dreamless sleep. So it knows that, and it's a little bit, yeah, as I say, humbled by that. Okay, so let me check if there are any more questions. No, just, yeah, okay. Okay, So I'm gonna wrap up now. That's it for tonight, or whatever time it is, wherever you are. And yeah, I'll see you next Monday for some more group interaction. Well, it wasn't much interaction tonight, but then that's okay. It's still a conversation. Because you're receiving it. I think you're receiving what I'm saying. And if you're watching this on video, yeah, come along to the next Zoom group. It's not really a group. I mean, I'd say it's a group, but it's really just me and you, wherever you are. Whether you're watching this as a video or you're participating in the Zoom group, it's still just me and you because you can't see who the other people are, and really it doesn't matter. Really, it's really you and you. Okay, be of good cheer, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.